We're here at Clearwater Beach, Florida at the nation's premier group for real estate investors. If you're doing over 50 deals per year or more, you're able to be here. So we've brought the podcast studio here to give you a glimpse at what's possible with real estate investing. Today we're with Adam Levinson, who bought his first house at 18 and over the years has made tons and tons of money. This podcast episode reminds me of such a crazy story you'd hear while at the bar, but we've brought it to you on this episode, and it ends in a surprising twist, something so important that he felt he missed in the previous years of his real estate investing that you don't want to miss out on. So when I reached out to you, we're at a real estate meetup, right? But you say you used to do real estate and now you do life policies.
Yeah, so actually,
Can you explain that?
Yeah, no, I'm still in real estate. I've been in real estate 30 years.
Okay.
So it's just been, so I still am involved in real estate. I still have a land development company in Atlanta. We do a lot of building, and I have some triple net stuff that we're dealing with, which is a new product in the
commercial type
space.
Stuff. Oh, it's
actually,
a triple net single family?
Yeah, so it's a new product. I partnered with a company that created this product, and I actually put 70 townhomes into the product. We went ahead and wrapped it with the lease, and that's, I think there's going to be a lot of traction there. It allows you to have access to the single family space without tenants and toilets. So there's a lot of people that want to have access to the space. They love the real estate space, but management is a nightmare, right?
What do you mean have access? Like you mean a short-term rental or?
No. So when I say access, I mean they want exposure to the asset class, but they don't want to deal with tenants and toilets.
Gotcha.
Because that's the worst part of the business. So this allows you to have access or to invest in the single family space without having to deal with the management piece of it.
Okay. On the commercial side, triple net means like they're not paying for certain things, right? Or they're responsible for their utilities. They're responsible for their construction or changing the property.
Correct.
What does the rest of the triple net mean?
So they don't pay for anything. Everything is passed through, every single expense. So when you operate and own a property, you pay for your taxes, your insurance, your maintenance, your turns, your R&M. Everything is paid for as an owner. Mm-hmm. So when you it's a triple net lease on there, all of that's passed through. So you get a net lease payment, and you pay, if you don't own anything on it, you get the payment, or you pay a mortgage.
Is the tenant attracted to that because it's advertised as a lower lease?
So the tenant doesn't know the difference. It's actually the owner. The tenant is renting a house like they don't even know if there's no benefit to the tenant. The benefit is to the investor that wants to invest in the single family space but doesn't want to deal with all of the
it's like a turnkey rental for them. You own the property, and then another investor has a triple net lease with you, and then a tenant rents it out from them.
So there's a master leaser, just like a CVS or Walgreens. They're a company called Appreciation Homes. They go ahead and provide the master lease. So me as the developer on this particular deal, because they need inventory, and then they need to have the end user who wants to hold it with a 30-year bond net lease. So I helped them, and I provided inventory. So I went ahead and I built 70 townhomes, and I said, let's put these into the program. And I had a lease put on there from Appreciation, so they wrapped all.
And Appreciation's not your.
No, Appreciation. I have some stuff. We're doing some stuff with them. I probably won't join them because I'm going in a different direction. I don't want a job anymore, so to speak, where I have to go into an office, but I like the concept. I think it's great, so I will provide inventory and I'll help all the builders get in. And so I went ahead and I built these 70 townhomes, and we wrapped it with the lease. There's cost to wrap it with the lease, so we went ahead. So now I have 70 townhomes that are, for all intents and purposes, 100% leased with this triple net lease. And so the tenant who's in there doesn't know anything. The
tenant rents from Appreciation Homes?
That's correct. Well, the tenant rents from
Appreciation Homes rents from you, basically.
Bingo. There you go. And then mom and pop investor comes in and says, hey, I love this concept. I love to get involved in this. And they could buy one. They don't have to buy all 7. They buy one house, and they get title to that house, and they get a 30-year bond net lease, which is a 5% guaranteed that increases at 1% a year. So they have a product that it's just like it now is no longer a real estate asset. It's a bond product, and they have it where they have title, so they get the appreciation, they get the depreciation, and they now have this asset that has a triple net lease that basically it's just like owning a Walgreens or a CVS or something like that.
And the advantage to you is that you have all your properties leased immediately, all at once, right?
Correct.
Instead of selling them off like one at a time.
Correct.
And also, I guess the advantage to Appreciation Homes is they don't have to have the cash to go control all these leases.
So
they could start renting it from you without putting a down payment or without putting...
Appreciation Homes will never own the house. They don't want to own the house.
Oh.
They want the lease. Me as the developer, it's great for me because I could either sell them one at a time, or I could wrap them with this lease, and then they'll sell through their platform. So for me, it's great. I don't want to hold these things long term. Appreciation Homes doesn't want to own it. They want the lease because the way it works, it's a bond net lease. It's a 30-year lease that has 3 extensions. So for all intents and purposes, on paper, it's an 80-year lease. When they go ahead and put an 80-year lease on this house, because now that this house is wrapped with this lease, it now needs to sell with that house. You can't. It's encumbered by this lease. So Appreciation Homes now gets to put a certain amount of that 80-year lease on their book. So let's call it, for the sake of this conversation, it's $1,000 for the 80 years. They will then get an asset on their books for $300. So now the more they get, they don't care. They're just building their balance sheet, and they have basically a contractual agreement. So they're very happy. Me as the builder, I'm happy because I was able to go ahead, build these, put the lease on it, put it into their program, and they're ultimately going to sell it. So I still want to exit it. So I provide the inventory, I wrap it with the lease. They're happy. They've got 70 leases on properties that are in perpetuity. I'm happy because I now built it. I don't have to worry about it. I give it to them, and then they're going to sell it to the end user. In fact, we just sold the first 6 of the 70, so now I have a round trip, so to speak. So I built it, I put it on the lease, we exited it, I made my money. So I made the same money or a little bit more than I would make if I was going to go ahead and sell them one at a time, but I didn't have to worry about absorption. I didn't have to worry about operating or managing them because as soon as I got them CO'd, I sent it to them, and we put the lease on, and then they sold it, and now I got my money. I'm out of the 6, so now I'm down 6 houses. They have 6 people that bought these leases. It's one guy that bought it, but they have one guy that bought these 6 homes that now he has a 30-year lease, and he doesn't have to worry about it. And so, roundabout, the guy that bought the houses was an older guy who wanted to clean up his estate. He had a bunch of houses that were old and beat up. These were brand new. He went ahead, and if he would have took his homes that he had, he would have either sold them, had a huge capital gain, or had to put $400,000 into them to go get the same NOI that he was going to get with these 6 homes. So he sold those. He transferred them to these six townhomes, and now he could leave those to his family, and no one has to worry about anything. They're just clipping a coupon.
Yeah, he feels good about it.
He feels good.
Yeah.
I'm happy, and the Appreciation Company.
That's
Appreciation
fascinating.
Homes is happy.
So did Appreciation Homes, did they innovate and create this for
That's
the first
correct.
time?
Yeah. So it's actually there's a patent. It's interesting, but there's a patent on the way this lease technology goes on the house, and it doesn't make any sense. I'm not a patent guy, but the guy who created this thing, because I'm like, it's a great idea, to be honest with you. Like, there's so many people that love single family, but they don't want to deal with the management. Because if I own 3 houses or 5 houses, and so I have my underwriting at 95% occupancy and 2% bad debt, and all of my OpEx, and I'm going to make X at the end of the day. And then what happens is a lot of guys that aren't institutional real estate guys, they say, well, it only cost me 20% to run this. Well, the reality is that's because you didn't have anything break. So if you reserve it and run it like a real business, it's going to cost you 45% to run these things, maybe a little bit less, which is the operational cost. So they tell themselves it only costs 20. Well, it costs 20 for 3 years, and then in year 4, they lose all their money. Right. So when you own 1 or 2 houses, you're going to go ahead and you're going to have that situation.
Correct. Yeah.
So here they go ahead, it goes, and they don't have to worry about anything. They could have, and they're 100% leased day 1 because technically that's the way the lease works. So it's great for somebody who wants to have exposure to the single family space and really just have an investment and clip a coupon.
Have you presented that at Collective Genius?
No, because I wanted to see this whole thing work.
Yeah.
So,
but now you just had 6 deals, right?
I actually have done the full round trip.
Circle.
So my plan was to go to a bunch of other developers and say, listen, guys, I have an opportunity for you guys to bring inventory. And, everybody, a lot of the builders that are in the business, when things were great, it was, hey, I'm selling as fast as I can build them. Well, now that's not the case, right? But they have to keep their machine going or they're going to go out of business. So here's an opportunity for them to build, CO, get the lease on, and move on.
Got it.
And so there's a lot of cost behind it, which is for a deeper conversation. But I wanted to see that I wanted to see that I could put this lease on them, they could exit them, and I can get a full round trip. And I just today, 6 closed. So now I see there's a full round trip.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, so that, it was interesting to me because now I have a bunch of these lots, so I'm just going to build for this program.
Yeah.
I don't want to sell to the individuals. I don't want to rent to people. It's a great business for somebody. So I think the real estate business is rental business is a great business, cash flowing, but it's a job. And so as I've now gone through all my iterations in life, and I'm at my point in life, I don't want that. So
understood.
So it's but I think you have to do all these things. I've been in real estate for years, since 1998. Doing condo conversions and institutional work, and I've worked with companies where we had 60,000 homes that we sold off. So I've kind of been through the whole.
So you worked for companies. You worked for an institution.
I was actually partners in two funds. So
like a hedge fund or something like that.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah.
How did that work? How did you that was your first year, 1998. Walk me through what your life is like.
It was quite an experience. So in 1998, I was doing consulting. I was in the cellular phone business prior to that. I was doing consulting, and then I was newly married and I was traveling around. And my wife says, you're never home, and so she said, why don't you try real estate? So I never did. I said, yeah, no problem. I've been fairly successful at everything I've done, or at some point, I've done pretty well. And so she said, well, why don't you sell real estate? So I said, all right, I could do that. So I got my license, and I got my broker's license, and I remember I only showed a customer one time. And so I took them all over and I showed them a load of houses, and after like 4 days, I'm like, I don't know if you can curse here, but I'm like, this is just not for me, right?
Yeah, you can curse. That seems like a lot of work.
So I'm like, this is just not for me. I mean, if you they like the house, it's great, and then you go back at 5 o'clock, and the way the light hits the house, it's. I said, listen, your house probably wasn't built yet. I'm like, so I went back and I said, listen, this is not for me. So I started looking at commercial stuff like duplexes and triplexes, zero emotions. Hey, you want this type of return? I bring you this deal, you buy it. So that started my investment career. So it was like one person, and then then I flipped a load of triplexes, and then I did some condo conversions. I did some smaller condo conversions, and then I partnered up with a group that had 8,000 units, and that was just about in 2006, 2007. We were coming out, and we had this.
What is a condo conversion? Are you converting it to an apartment or something else?
Well, you'll buy a. So in 2004, 2003, 2005, you would buy 300-unit Class A apartment complexes, deed them all out separately, and sell them out as condos, and that was a huge business. We would sell out in hours. We'd put the red ropes out, and it was great. It was like 2003, 2004 in the height, and so roll in. We get to about 2007, we have 8,000 units, and the whole market blew up. So that's when that thing, kind of went the wrong way. And then, so then I got wiped out in 2008, lost everything. Wow. And so I went from making a lot of money to no money and so I started, believe it or not, I went in 2007, I made a substantial amount of money. In 2008, I couldn't even pay my electric bill. I was taking pictures of houses for $25, and, I kind of clawed and kind of figured it out and made some decent money. And I met some guys out of New York, and they were Wall Street guys, and they wanted to be in the real estate business. Well, I knew it better than anybody, but they needed a sweat equity guy. So I went and we started buying houses and flipping houses, and this was just as the institutional stuff started happening. In 2008, 2009.
You mean like hedge funds were buying single family homes?
Even prior to that, like 2008, it was that era, like the 2008 crash, 2009, you were starting to get into it. 2012 was when the institutions really got heavy into it.
Yeah.
So in 2009, I was going to the courthouse and I was buying houses, with $500,000 judgments for $40,000. It was just a crazy time.
Meaning they didn't pay their mortgage. They owed $500,000.
They owed $500,000.
Maybe it was worth $550,000.
Well, at the time, and now it was worth, who knows, nothing. I mean, it got wiped out. So there were houses that were $50,000, $60,000 through that whole run up with the, the bad real estate lending practices. They went up to $5. Let's say it was $400,000. Then you had the accrued interest and everything. So they went to the bank and they were owed $550,000 when they went to foreclosure, and we were buying those things at $50,000, $60,000 at the bank. I mean, at the courthouse.
Yeah.
So that was started. So I had one guy come in from New York. The guys that I was partners in the condo conversion business. They were great guys, and I was helping them raise money to continue to do deals. So I remember I met a guy in Miami. I was in the elevator, and I was showing a condo to a friend of mine, and he heard me talking about the business. He goes, I'd love to get involved. So I said, all right, I'll introduce you over to my friends, because I was helping them raise money. And so I do the whole pitch just because, I'm the guy that brought him in. We go outside. He goes, I don't need those guys. I'll give you the money. I says, all right. So he started with $3 million with me, and we started buying houses. So we flipped a load of houses. And there's a lot of other stuff that, high interest rates that he was getting. But for me anyway, I don't know where this thing gets posted, but I can tell you a lot of the stuff that I wouldn't want to get out there. But it was because they're great guys, but it was an interesting run. But long story, nothing illegal, but just I was in a position where I needed to make money, so I was willing to take any deals, and the deals weren't so great.
Yep.
But they were great. Like, it changed my life. He did a great job. But long story short, we're buying houses for, we started flipping. I probably flipped about 200 houses, and then we started buying rentals, and we bought probably 200-300 rentals. And then he brought 2 of his other friends in, and they said, "Hey, we love this business." This was about 2010, 2011, and then they came in, and then we got up to about 700 single-family homes. And then they sat on the board of one of these large funds, who actually happened to be, Tricon was also on this board with Tricon Residential, and they wanted to get into the single family space. And their plan was to fund different operators across the country. So we had the Southeast, these guys had a bunch of money, and I was the guy that was operating everything. So we then folded all our homes into them.
Okay.
And so we bought a bunch more homes, and we folded them into they took all of their minority partners and folded them all in. So I was partners in that company. And then they said they wanted to, they originally wanted to get into the space and spend $50 million. Well, that was the idea. Now they have 80,000 homes. I mean, they're huge, right?
Whoa. So
they're one of the larger 5.
Why do you think they choose real estate as an asset versus anything else they could have put $50 million in?
So in 2008, 2009, there was probably no better place to put money. We were at a time that real estate you probably will never, ever see again in our lifetime, where houses, you could pick them up for nothing.
Well, no, the price always goes up. You could see that graph on the Federal Reserve.
Right, correct.
Yeah. So overall, it goes up. There was a dip in 2008.
So, like anything else, right?
Yeah.
Somebody says, "Oh, I made this much money." Even like the people with Bitcoin and stuff, which is great. I like the cryptos, but I made 500 grand. I made 200. Well, unless you sell, unless you've been through your life, you don't make anything. On paper, it's great. Then go to sell, right? So this was the time that you were able to buy these houses. Never in our lifetime were you able to buy these, and probably never in our lifetime again will you see that type of dip again. So then Warren Buffett came out and said, "Hey, you know what? If I had so much money, I'd buy 10,000 single-family homes," and everybody got into the space, and it got crowded after a while. But from 2009 to 2011, 12, it was just the real estate guys, and then 2012, the institutions started coming in, and it was great. I mean, they were buying stuff for, just to give you an idea, like 3 times gross rent. So you pick up a house for 30 grand that you recoup your money with no liquidity in 3 years.
3 years.
What a great investment, right?
Yeah.
So,
I had one of those.
Yeah. Okay.
Very hard to come by.
Well, now you can't come by that, but they were a dime a dozen back then,
Yeah. Talk to me about 2008 when you said you lost everything. One of the things that I've always taken pride in is, even if I really screw up and my company goes away, you could take away my Ferrari, you could take away my house, you could take away my business and my employees, but you can't take away the experiences that I've had. And I would feel like I've never lost everything, right? But I've definitely had some big dips.
Sure.
And I'm just curious, was that the case? Did you feel like all that had given you experience that gave you, well, you worked for that guy. You went to work for that guy who had money and wanted somebody to operate. Right. So even though you lost everything, you were able to get such a great opportunity because you actually had the experience.
Well, I'll tell you what. So I had never been in a position where I lost everything. Like, my cars got taken, my boat got taken. I remember when I first met him, I had to park my car around the block because I didn't know if it was going to get repoed while I was in the meeting with him. And I had to put on a front that, everything was great.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, I was in bad shape. I remember we went to dinner, and in fact, I never even told him this. So we went to dinner, and he was a pretty wealthy guy. I'm like, well, of course he's going to pay for dinner, right? So we go to dinner, and the bill comes, and he wants to split it. So I go in the bathroom, I'm calling the back of the credit card company to make sure I could pay the bill. I had enough room on my credit card. And so I lost everything. I mean, literally everything. So I remember it was the first time, everybody would talk about depression and what depression was like, and I never experienced depression in my entire life. So then when I lost everything, it was 1 foreclosure and 2 foreclosures, because I had probably $10-15 million worth of stuff myself, that, and so I lost, everything went away. And so I was sitting there, and I have never I've never had a W-2 my entire life. So I'm sitting there, and I lose everything, and then somehow the house I was living in, my house where my family was, they come and serve foreclosure papers. And I just kind of hit me like, everything's gone, And so for about 2 weeks, I'm sitting in bed, and I'm looking at I'm looking at Monster.com and looking for jobs, and I realize I have zero experience to get a job, right? Because I've never had a job, right? So you look at them like, I can't even get a $50,000 a year job. So I'm sitting there and for about 2 weeks, I'm looking at the ads, I'm kind of beating up myself, and I've never been in that position. And my wife comes in, she says, all right, listen, it's been 2 weeks, it's long enough, you got to get out of the house and go make something happen. So, I left and then I just started like taking pictures of houses for $25 and doing beat
for investors or for banks?
For banks, whatever I could do, like any thing I could do to make money.
But you're in the industry still.
Yeah, still in the industry. Yeah, anything I could do, and that's when I met him because I was out there, doing rentals.
That was smart, right? It put you in position to meet that guy because you were doing real estate.
Yeah, no, I would. Yeah, and then really, what happens is, you get beat up in an industry, and then you go pick something else, right? And then why did you leave it? Well, it's the guys that sit there and stick through it and take the pain, and those are the guys they want to invest in. And so, I believe it or not, as you go through up and down in your career, and you lose money, and you make your back again, and you have a new guy that's never lost money, but he's got this amazing spreadsheet of how well he's going to do. The guy who lost the money that made it back is going to get the money faster than the guy who has the amazing spreadsheet. Because people want to give money to a guy who's made it out of a problem before. And that's been the experience, that I've had. But it was, so fast forward to 2008, 2009, buying a load of deals. And then I remember they sat on the board with Tricon and they wanted to get in the space. So then they said, listen, you're going to go ahead and we're going to, in fact, so I'm bouncing around here because I'm kind of thinking.
I'm loving it. Is Tricon around?
Yeah, they're huge. They're one of the big five, yeah.
Big five hedge funds?
You got American Homes for Rent, you got Progress Residential, and you got a Tricon. They're in their league.
Are those houses that like a wholesaler could sell to?
So that business, in my opinion, is over, the wholesale thing, because they've realized over time that the old houses are garbage. Right, and so they want the new construction. They want the single family designated communities, which they didn't want before, because they realized they're easy to manage. You got 300 roofs in one place.
Yeah.
So I think that it's not hot enough now. Maybe if interest rates come down.
Yeah. But so wholesaling still exists. The hedge funds don't want it as much.
Yeah, because they're just the cost to operate these things. Like you got to dial these things in so tight to make money because the margins are so small. I mean, you're talking, you lay out $300,000 to make $400 a month. I mean, it's a very, very small margin.
Yeah.
So, and you have one blow up or one bad roof or one AC and your whole model's screwed.
Yeah.
So, and then, the idea of having trucks all over the place and houses all over the place, it was a land grab. At the beginning, you bought anything. And then now, as the business is getting more sophisticated with technology and everything, these single family designated communities, almost like a horizontal apartment complex, is really what is appealing, and they understand. Listen, at the end of the day, every business that you're in, you're trying to make money, clip a coupon. Right. It doesn't matter what you're using. So if you're in the real estate business, you're really not in the real estate. If you're like, I always said to myself, I'm in the money deployment business. My vehicle to clip a coupon on that money happens to be houses, but it could be anything. So I think what people realize, they think they're in real estate. Well, they're not really. That happens to be the vehicle they're using to the end game, which is to make cash.
Yeah.
And I think people get confused on that.
Yes. Well, on that topic, you actually said you do another business as well when I invited you to this podcast.
Yeah. So
would you mind talking a little bit about the life insurance policy, to me, how that works?
Yeah, that to me is the most amazing business I've ever been involved in. So, again, I'm still involved in real estate. I do the land development stuff, but this here, every business you go into, you say, what's the risk, what's the reward, right? And every business has a risk reward. So I got involved. A family friend of mine that I know very well, he's in the life settlement business. So if you see the ads on TV where you have folks that say, hey, if you want to sell your life insurance policy, you'll go ahead and that's called a life settlement. So that's when someone sells it.
And they're still alive.
They're still alive.
They just prefer the cash instead of the policy.
Well, so this is what happens. This is what happens when you're a young guy. You start out your family. You want insurance for your family because insurance is exactly that, right? You want insurance. So now you're 40 years old. You got three young kids. You now are moving on with your life. Now you're 70. Your three young kids have their own life. You got a couple of $1,000,000. You got no debt on your house, and you're like, what am I paying $80,000 a year for this insurance policy? So believe it or not, there's $20 trillion of in-place life insurance policies, meaning death benefits. Of that, 97% never ever go to a death claim because they either let them go, don't need them, don't want them.
So they just stop paying, but they lose the actual policy they've been paying for.
They lose everything, correct. So, and what happens is they have this cash, and everybody says, well, my life insurance, and not to knock the life insurance thing, but insurance is just that.
So how do you come into play? You're not the insurance company.
So I buy the policy. So you're, Mr. Jones, you're 75 years old, you have $1 million policy, and you now either can't afford it anymore, don't want it anymore, or don't need it anymore. Well, I buy it. And so I'll say, hey, Mr. Jones, and it actually goes through a broker. You need special licenses to be able to buy this. So we're partnered with a guy that has, all of the life settlement licenses and life insurance licenses. So even if I wanted to buy your policy, great, we got to settle it through him.
Got it.
So now we got to that point. You decided you want to sell your policy. Well, I'm on the other side and I'm going to buy it. And so you'll bring your life insurance policy, and we get an actuary to go ahead and do all of the evaluation on how long you possibly could live.
Yeah.
And then we match it up against also the CDC and the Social Security. And so we get a life expectancy. And then I know based on what I'm going to pay and what the premiums, because I'm going to give you money to buy your contract, and then I'm going to pay your insurance premium until you pass away, and then I'm going to claim the death benefit. Mm-hmm. So it's a math game. So what is my return going to be? So we have enough data that shows over the last, so my partner's been doing this 17 years, and he's been in the life insurance business 30. So we know, we value these policies, and we put a rating on it. And this rating comes from backing it up against all the data of all the past policies that we've had. And if you have the same medical profile and the same age profile and same prescription profile, we know there's a 70% chance of when you'll pass.
Wow.
And so
does it take that long until you make a profit?
So the idea is you want to, so a lot of guys may have said, hey, most people haven't heard about this, and I'll tell you why. So of the $20 trillion of in-place policies, there's only $2 billion a year that trade. So that means there's $20 trillion of death benefits out there, and only $2 billion of those a year trade. 80% of those go to institutions. Mm-hmm. It's mostly institutional business. Mm-hmm. The other 20% goes to high net worth guys. So it's a very high barrier to entry, and you probably can't even find the opportunity to invest in this space. So then what we go ahead is, we put together a fund, because if you buy one or you buy two or buy four, your risk is higher.
You need to buy a lot, so it
buy a lot, so it flattens. Yeah, so we do $25 million funds. We buy about 300 policies in each fund, and so the reality is you'll start having, payouts from people passing away. Mm-hmm. You don't know, right? But 12 to 18 months, and we layer the policies in a certain way that we kind of could predict how the cash flow stream will happen. But it's totally uncorrelated to the market. So if you buy you buy a house, a real estate, and you want to manage the house. Yeah. You have to worry if mortgage rate's going to change. You have to worry, do you have the right operational team? You have to worry about who's president. You have to worry about if there's a recession. I don't have to worry about anything here. So I buy a life insurance policy. I don't have to worry about one thing except that he's going to live forever, or she's going to live, which we know that's not going to happen.
So a question for you. I'm intrigued by this. I've never met somebody who invests like this. I didn't even know it was possible. So it's obviously not easy. You have to have licenses, et cetera. Why do you still do the real estate if you have such a great business on the life insurance side? So, real estate's an interesting thing. I'm in love with real estate. I've been doing it so long, but I'm slowing down, and I have my partner in Atlanta is the operational partner. Me operationally, I wouldn't buy another house again personally and go flip a house. I have a partner in Atlanta that we've been doing deals, and he's the operations partner, and I bring the capital. So that's the only reason I'm still involved in the real estate. Yeah. And then the triple net thing is we're building. I'm not going out to find flips or to do buildings or to start new I have no interest in that whatsoever. Yeah. What advice? It makes sense, because at the stage you're at in your career, you've kind of done all that. You've elevated. You've made your money. You can now just deploy it and have somebody else do those things. What would your advice be to somebody who's like wanting to break out of their 9 to 5 and do a business, start real estate? Would you say, like, should they wholesale? Should they flip? Or should they go find a job at some type of institution like you did, where they can learn more about the business?
Yeah, so it probably depends on what, I think everybody has to look and say, what is it that I want? Mm-hmm. And then I think you tailor your life based on that. If I had to do it all over again, I would go back at 20 years old. I bought my first house at 18 years old. And I would buy a house and I would rent it. And I'd keep it and buy another house, I'd rent it. But every time I would buy houses over the years, I said, do I make 30 grand or do I make $300 a month? And I never wanted to make $300 a month because I wanted the quick money. And I never thought I'd be 53 years old. It's crazy how fast that happens. So then you fast forward and you're like,
well, man, you should have taken out a life insurance policy.
Bingo. 53-year-olds ain't worth any money, too healthy. But it's like, you never think when you're 20 years old, you're going to be 50. And you also say, that's $300 a month. Well, you don't realize by the time you're 50, you now have 500 houses or 300 houses, and you got massive cash flow, you have massive equity. But so I think that if I would talk to a young person, I'd say, you should buy a house and you should do that, because they have the energy and they want a job, right? Because it's a job. Owning a house is a job. And then they could then wrap these things up. So you buy a couple of single family houses, then you grow, and then you combine that in, and you go ahead and buy a multifamily, and you kind of grow it up there. So
unfortunately, the camera stopped recording, but Adam said some things as soon as we got up that I needed you guys to hear. And one of the things he shared was he lost both of his kids. His daughter was an addict and his son was in a tragic ATV accident. He said he spent a lot of time working on chasing money. He always put money on a pedestal. He always thought that the guy with all the girls, the fancy car, the amazing lifestyle was somebody who truly lived life to the fullest. And he put aside the time he was not spending with his kids. And that was something that he had to reconcile with after he lost both of them. And I felt like that was so important for you guys to hear, that money does make problems easier, but the love of money isn't something worth chasing to no end, and to make sure you guys spend time with your loved ones and your relationships while you're here. So I just wanted you guys to hear that at the end of this episode, because I thought that was one of the most impactful things that Adam shared, and super thankful for Adam for sharing that.
Thanks for listening to the DealMachine Real Estate Investing Podcast. Please leave us a review and follow along wherever you're listening to your podcast.